Spook.
Yes.
What's this?
Well, in the animal kingdom, it's known as Empiricus shitheadedness.
It stinks.
You should have smelled it on Saturday night.
Welcome to the Collingwood Rant. I am Sly.
And I am... Ooh, we were so close, Spook.
And we are coming to you following the qualifying final loss against the worst West Coast Eagles.
West Coast Eagles.
So we're going to break down this match.
Oh, no, don't break down. It wasn't that bad.
Well, I'm a Collingwood supporter, so there's a very good chance I will break down at some point. I'm going to break this down into three sections. Firstly, the selections.
Mm-hmm.
So, Jack Magden, Nathan Murphy, and Adam Oxley went out.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Okay, and in came Jeremy Howe, who had the longest corky I've ever seen. Never known a player to be out for 6 weeks with a corky. Tyson Goldsack back from an ACL, and Adam Treloar.
Who?
Is it Adam Treloar?
Who? What was it? Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember him.
Yeah. So all three of these guys have had long layoffs.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what did you think about the selections?
It was a little bit of a sense of rolling the dice, obviously, going into the game. One was inspired, as it turns out, I think. One would be better for the experience. And one could have had another week with the corky, I think, almost.
Okay, so I'm just going to I'm going to break this down. All right. So the three guys that went out, Magden and Murphy, have played under 10 games.
Under 10s?
Yep.
Oh, that's a fall from grace.
Jeez, they could dominate in that league. Adam Oxley has played, 30 games in about the 300 years he's been on the list.
Oh, yeah? Name them.
Yeah. Who else could have come in? Because there's a lot of contention about, particularly about Tyson Goldsack. So who else could have they brought in?
The cupboard was bare.
Would you?
Moore was. I know we talked about this leading in. Moore would have been the obvious one, and Reid. I don't think they spent any time in this universe fit this year. So
yeah, just on Moore and Reid, according to Jeff Walsh, he said they were still 1 to 2 weeks away. So they were ruled out. I mean, people said
really you should be talking years though.
Yeah, someone said Moore trained strongly, but obviously there's a big difference between training and playing. Again, Moore's been out for like 6 weeks himself. Also,
what a hammy.
Would you have gone for Magden over Goldsack prior to watching Saturday night?
I would have thought it would have been a big gamble, and I probably would have gone in favour of Magden.
Really?
I know you're a very big advocate of Goldsack, and I'm here with the egg on the face.
Well, for me, there's a lot of furor about Goldsack being selected, about whether he was good enough to play and all that sort of stuff. And I'm thinking, we don't know the medical status of these guys. They would have a much better indication inside the club, particularly if they don't consult the medical department. But if Sack was fit, he was the best option available, given there was no Scharenberg, no Moore, no Reid, and there was, McClarty. Obviously, he's not ready. Otherwise, they would have played him at some point. And again, if you played McClarty, you're playing someone who would have been, very inexperienced and all that. And with Goldsack for experience, for a hard physical body,
and a big beard.
Yep. And to me, it's sort of, I thought, well, it's a roll of the dice, but it's a roll of the dice they're casting because there's just no other alternatives.
Yeah, I guess a lot of my apprehension was about whether he'd actually make it through the banner, let alone the game. So you're looking at someone who about 8 minutes ago did an ACL, repaired, done all the work, lots of the thing. No doubt about it. Had about 5 minutes worth of game time in a VFL game.
Yep.
Your flags were naturally waving, I think. And I probably would have erred on the side of caution and gone with Magden simply because you were knowing he was going to get through the game at least.
So I'm thinking also they were thinking positively that if they won this, that meant all these guys like Goldsack and Treloar wouldn't play next week, and you'd be bringing them back in the prelim.
Yeah, that's a point. Yep.
So Treloar, he's another guy who's been out for quite a while, and like Goldsack, he seems to be ahead of schedule in terms of his recovery. would you have chosen him, or would you have stuck with, again, there's not a lot of alternatives in the reserves?
In that instance, and I would have, definitely gone with him.
Well, Trelaw brings something distinctive to the side, which is breakaway pace.
And breakaway hamstrings.
Yeah. So you can see why they went with him. And Jeremy Howe, who kept being 1 week away for the last 6 weeks.
Out of all three of them, he would have been the first selection that I would have been comfortable with, but as it panned out. Yeah.
All right, so let's look at the game.
Mm-hmm.
So what did you think? What were your thoughts as the game was like? That first quarter, they were all over us. It looked like it could potentially get ugly.
Yep, and I think the Varco goal certainly inspired a little bit of time to wake up, boys, and we certainly came back hard at them. And I always sort of felt that we would. We have had some poor starts where we just don't seem to, and this will be a theme tonight, is that we just don't seem to give up. Considering what's happened to this club over the last few months, it would have been easy just to, in a final, to disappear into your shell. But they're resilient and they fought back, and I think that's an admirable trait. To the point where I messaged you probably a little bit early, and I thought that this is the arrival game that we've made our announcement to the competition that you've got to take us seriously now,
right,
because they're just going exceptionally well, despite the fact that we lost. What's going on with this club and the bonding, the clear will to keep going is really, really wonderful.
And that's something I agree with. I mean, throughout the year, I have repeatedly thought this could be the game where it just collapses for them. And if you look at every club in the league other than Richmond has had a little slump of some sort at some point. Collingwood is the only other one who hasn't had a slump. There's been times I thought, okay, we've lost these players. I mean, you look at that Richmond game, the second time we played them, which is a really good example where the goalie was ruled out before the game with whatever injury he had. And then Howe was concussed or corked 20 minutes into the game, and then Scharenberg did his ACL 3/4 in the game. You think they could have really just tossed this at any point, and they took it up to the Premiers. Now, Richmond, like I said, has been the only other team who hasn't slumped. We haven't slumped. Everyone else at some point has slumped, and just it's amazing how resilient we've proven.
Mm-hmm.
Really interesting stat that I researched. Reed, you gave it to me. Collingwood had 14 players playing their first final. The Eagles, just 4.
You might want to spin that round a little bit.
It's alright, yes. Collingwood had 14 players playing their first final.
Oh, sorry, is that what you said?
Yeah.
I thought you said no. I heard that wrong.
Edit.
Yep.
Yep, and the Eagles had just 4, and from our team we only had 4 guys who've played finals, and as you pointed out, Scott Pendlebury was coming back from the Ebola virus or something like that. Tyson Goldsack was coming back from an ACL.
Knee reconstruction,
yep.
Yes.
Travis Varco tragically had the passing of his sister. Yep. And the 4th player was...
who we covered?
Still side bottom, and he was pretty good.
Yeah, he was good, yep.
For most of the game. So we had a total lack of experience, and you had a lot of guys there who just are generally inexperienced anyway, who were expected to hold down key position. I mean, look, Braden Size is a really good example.
Fantastic performance.
Yep. Hoskin, Elliott, Adams, these guys have got a bit more experience. They've never played finals.
No.
So,
and that has to be taken into consideration.
Chris, Langdon, all these guys, they're sort of getting around the 50-60 game mark now. So when they're in that pit of hostility... you easily could have thought, well, geez, they're just going to freeze under the spotlight. And I think that's probably what would happen in that first quarter is they took a little while to acclimate. As we've shown this year when we play, there's times, because we have that rotational forward line where someone else always stands up. We never know who's going to be the key goal kicker in that game. It's like just at times we're trying to find the right mix, and that sort of seemed to take a little while in this game before we found it. But once we found it, I thought we easily could have been 4 or 5 goals up.
Mm-hmm.
Second, third quarter in.
Yeah, some terrible misses.
Yep, and due to some other issues. And then when West Coast came at us, and this has probably been the theme throughout the season against the better teams, and against the lesser teams, when we've needed someone to stand up, someone stood up. And it's usually been Pendlebury, side bottom, Grundy, or the Goey, who've really stood up. Against the better teams, and we've needed that bit of X factor from someone, it just hasn't happened.
No.
And not criticising these players, because obviously, they're all at different stages of their careers. You're not going to expect anyone like the Goey, still, let's say played 40, 50 games, to, bully a top team. West Coast is one of the premiership contenders. But I think going forward, if we're to expect it to beat these better teams, you're going to need that oomph from someone.
Yeah.
And you can't just sort of rely on the same old suspects, which were, Pendlebury was obviously struggling. Grundy, I thought statistically did well, but I don't think he had a profound impact on the game.
No, and who was he rucking against? Lysett or something?
Yeah.
And I think there are times where he actually had the better of Grundy and had more of an impact on the outcome. So, yeah.
Yeah, side bottoms, the other one. You really need to get these guys like Hoskin Elliott, even Cox being the key forward there, just to really sort of step up and just go, you know what, I'm going to seize this game.
Oh, it's probably hard for Cox to step up when he's got 19 blokes hanging off him.
Well, that's a good point that we'll get to in a second. So, really, any other thoughts about the game in terms of how we could have positioned players? I mean, I was saying to you, one thing I would have considered doing was, if I was Buckley, I would have played the goalie on McGovern, and I would have said to the goalie, you're just going to be a decoy this whole game. You're going to get 2 possessions the whole game. Just run away from all the play. Take McGovern away from you. They'll never expect we're going to sacrifice someone of that quality just to play as a decoy, but I think that would have really caught them by surprise.
Oh, I think, though, McGovern was bested by the comedic stylings of Chris Mayne.
Well, there's a guy we should mention. Yet again, he does some of the hard stuff really well, but then has no proactivity to make something happen.
The yin and the yang.
He had that really good bit of play on the wing, and then he just slowed it down and turned around and looked for the handoff.
He's been guilty of that all year, though.
Yeah, and you know what? You're 39 years of age now. Take the fucking game on. Seriously, you must have that experience. You're not going to get dropped, or you weren't up to this point.
I still think you won't be.
Yeah, but they're the sort of players you need to take ownership of the play at that time and go, I'm going to go. And that's what I love about guys like...
And kick the fucking goals.
Yeah, well, that's, geez, you weren't picked up as a forward or anything.
What's he kicked about 348 this year?
And that's why I like guys like Crisp and Langdon. Langdon gets maligned, but geez, at times he just goes, I'm going to go for this. I'm going to do this. I'm going to try and make something. Maine I think he's done it once this year.
Was that when the ball hit him in the face?
No, there was another game, I can't remember who it was against, but I remember he actually looked for the handoff and there was no one around him, so he actually ran and passed to someone up forward. But, when it's your turn to go, you got to go. You can't just sort of keep going,
It's a final, for fuck's sake, mate.
Yeah. Any last thoughts
No,
this part of the thing?
I mean, look, obviously with hindsight, you look at it and say it was a disappointing loss. But you can't fault the endeavour.
The endeavour was great.
To go over there with, again, with the injuries that we're carrying, the guys that we brought in that were underdone, to get as close as we did. I mean, we probably should have won the game, clearly, but to fall short, it's not wrist-slashing time. I think it really bodes well for the future.
But we've talked about this. I mean, even if we would have dropped out in straight sets, you still look at this year and think, geez, they've accomplished so much, given so much duress throughout the season with injuries and other things going on inside the club and outside the club, which they have no control over. And you think at any time they could have just sort of said, well, look, it's gotten too much. Everyone will forgive us if we just now go on a bit of a slide. They've never done it. They've been competitive every game.
Never dropped the heads.
And,
that is an amazing trait.
And statistically,
to have.
I think it was 15 games they'd lost players in with injuries, and you think any of those games they could have, again, just given up. And they fought it out. They won a number of them. A few of the others. Against the better teams, I just noticed just at that given time, you just need someone to stand up and just do that thing that's required.
Yeah, and look, a lot of that's going to come back to finals experience. Yep. It's a whole different beast, but they'll learn from this experience, I think.
Okay, so let's look at something else here. And in saying that we lost, we're just conceding we weren't good enough on the night. And so I'm not using this as an excuse as to why we lost or contributing to the loss. But on Wednesday, I had the Collingwood Turtle, as insightful and nice guy as you could meet, text me saying, and I'm going to
stumpy little feet.
I'm gonna put this civilly instead of the way it was texted to me.
Oh no, don't hold back.
He said, these are the umpires who've gone for this game. Expect to get a really rough deal, and we got a rough deal. Now the umpiring on the night was farcical. You had so many double standards, things like where, for example, they got their first goal after Langdon was pinged for a push. They kicked the ball forward. Who was it? Did the big push out? to Cox. They did a big push. It wasn't pinged.
It was Lycett as
Yeah,
well.
it wasn't Lycett. Yeah. There was a lot of things like that where it was paid one way and it wasn't paid the other way. It was paid instrumentally at a really vital time of the game. So the one, Willie Rioli ducks into a tackle.
That was a good one. I like that one.
And I'm pretty sure that the controlling umpire did not pay it. It was one of the other umpires ran in and overruled him. Head clash. Both players got cut. West Coast got the free.
And what's more, Greenwood went up against, it was reviewed by the match review panel today, apparently, to see whether there's anything more that could be done about it.
That's amazing. Kennedy paid the mark that hit the deck.
Yeah, and it was, look, I may be remembering this one, but I reckon the one umpire called play on that, another one overruled and said no, it was a mark.
Yep.
One who had the good view where the ball hit the deck, but anyway.
Cox pushed out of the ruck contest play on.
Which time?
All of them, and then the endless scragging and tunnelling of Cox. He was constantly running under the ball, and it wasn't because he was mistiming it. He was just getting shoved massively from the beginning. It was not paid at once, and it's like, seriously, Collingwood, just take the hit and say something every week. If I was Buckley, I would be saying, look, we're sick of the way he's getting treated, okay? This happened to Travis Cloak, we're not doing it again. Find me, but pay the freeze and protect him. When you get people like Wayne Carey, I think Jason Dunstall was the other one, who are actually saying, geez, he's getting a rough deal. When commentators are media actually defending one of our players, it must be pretty seriously shit. Yeah. There was that Maynard one where he
just back on Cox though. I mean, to balance the ledger with him, there is a number of marks he should have clunked.
Yeah.
However, though, the fact that you've got that scragging going on, it's almost giving validation for the defenders. There,
it emboldens the defenders.
I get away with this.
Yep.
Let's just keep doing it until we don't get away with it. And then by the end of the game, you're going, how fucking good was that?
Yeah. And the thing is, if you don't pay the first few, the umpires have been conditioning themselves to say, I'm not paying those. We're just going to let those go.
Yep.
If you pay the first one, the defenders become tentative, and the umpire sets the ground rule, this is not going to be acceptable. And they even set their own standards. Everyone was Maynard running back with the fly of the ball to spoil it. He ran
his face?
Yeah, well, no, that was Chris May.
Sorry, I get the two confused.
Yeah.
Not.
Yeah, and he did spoil it, but he ran into, I think it was Willie Rioli again, and there was a charge. And that was one where I'm thinking, what was his alternative there? He's running full pace. If they're saying he didn't have his eyes on the ball, what are you going to do? Run full pace with his head turned over his shoulder, not being aware of what was coming forward? There's a lot of these frees where it was like a double standard, or it came at a vital time where, they were struggling or were looking to get away, and then bang, free kick.
It's not like there's a history of hometown favouritism, though.
Again, I'm not going to blame the umpiring for the loss.
No, I'll do that.
But geez, there was a lot of really bad umpiring where even I think Matthew Richardson said West Coast are getting the rub. Again, if a media person is actually favouring Collingwood for calling like that,
it must be true.
It must be serious. And I'm really tired of getting reamed in vital games where you think just umpire it fairly. That's all I want. I don't care if you pay things or you don't pay things, but you can't do both, or you're paying for one team but not paying for the other. Just have some consistency. And the umpiring standard in the AFL is atrocious. That you get frees changing from game to game, interpretations changing from umpire to umpire.
Yep.
You need to fucking get this right, because this is just deplorable. You have to be a professional, multi-million-dollar organisation.
Meant to be.
And you still got part-time umpires who half the time are umpiring one way, other half time umpiring another way, until someone gets really trips over a Labrador. Any final thoughts about the umpiring?
We mentioned the slipping.
That's a good point, the slipping.
What?
What's with the slipping?
Whoop.
Over Collingwood, at vital times.
The timing was impeccable.
Tom Langdon's good for a couple of slips every game, and they're usually at really important times. Travis Varco slipped right into, and that was at a vital time. Wear the right boots. Do these have to be checked by someone? If I was a coach and I saw one slip, I'd just be pulling that player off and going, get your fucking right boots on. I don't want to see you slip again. I understand sometimes it's going to happen, naturally. Grass, you're running full pace and all that. But geez, it happened.
Too much.
So get that right. I don't want to be losing games because people are bloody slipping over at the wrong time.
I did see a lot of banana peels on the ground, though.
Oh, fuck. Well, you should look at that. West Australia. Anyway, so that's it for the match review. We'll be back with Media Mephitic. Sort of.
That old chestnut.
Yeah. So welcome to Media Mephitic. We've got a whole one thing on Media Mephitic.
Oh, can I guess who this is about? Would it be Mark Robinson?
You win a car.
Oh, which one? A new Ford Tipex.
The Lexus outside. Lexus makes such great cars. Where is our Lexus sponsorship? Mark Robinson in the Herald Sun tipped a Richmond-Melbourne grand final.
Oh, where's this going?
But he tipped that Geelong would beat Melbourne in that first final.
Yes. I can see that there's no problem with this one.
So if Geelong would have beat Melbourne in that first final, Melbourne would have been knocked out of the finals race, which might have made it hard for them to make the grand final. As far as I'm aware, there's no challenge system in place anymore for the 6th place team or wherever they're placed.
There could be though.
We should lobby for that.
You know what though? I wouldn't be surprised if Mark Robinson tweeted later on that it wasn't his fault.
Yet again, another production error. This follows start of the year where he tipped Collingwood to beat Adelaide by 50 points, and that was a production error.
Wow.
He had a spat with Alistair Clarkson last year, the year before, where Robbo complained that by accident an earlier draft of his story had been filed.
That'd be a production error.
Yes.
Yeah.
Just in general, Mark Robinson said that ridiculously insensitive stuff about Fasolo and his depression.
Another production error.
Then offered the most disingenuous apology I've ever heard on SEN.
That wouldn't have been a production error.
That wouldn't have been, nope. He made the lewd remark about AFLW inaugural Best and Fairest when Erin Phillips kissing her partner. He called Tom Lynch the white Buddy Franklin.
Oh.
Now, with all these things happening, how long a time do you think those sort of things would happen over? I mean, it'd have to be like over 20, 25 years you'd have to make.
Well, I think 20, 25 minutes would be about right.
Well, about 2 years. 2 years it's taken him to make all these mistakes. And this is the chief football writer at the Herald Sun. I can only imagine the Herald Sun has no standards.
This is a guy also too that tweeted, I think, after the GWS Sydney game, "These are all the reasons why we need to bring in all these rule changes to save the game." And then we had a cracker of a game on Saturday night.
Well, it's amazing the people who want to change the game
Just totally cracker in the way it resulted, but
but they totally ignore the really good games that we do get. Maybe the GWS Sydney game was bad because Sydney have a really boring, dreary, defensive, flooding style.
Or maybe they've been up for 50 years and it's time to go down.
But we're moving away from the issue here.
Idiots.
Yeah, yes, exactly. You know,
I thought we had enough on this show.
I hate the state of football journalism for the most part. There's a lot of...
Wasn't that like a contradiction in terms?
Well, that's a total contradiction in terms. There's a lot of really bad people in the football media who are this poor at what they do, what they talk about, and they're not held accountable. I know a lot of people just try and ignore Robo or actually get to the point where they try and get blocked by him on Twitter.
I don't think that really takes a special skill these days.
No, it doesn't. But, you know, if this guy is your leading football writer in the country, not just the state, but in the country, then AFL, you really need to do something about your standards and practices, because this journalism is quite possibly the most appalling fucking thing I've heard over the last 2 years.
Come
and it keeps
on.
happening and happening and happening and happening, and no one holds him accountable.
He polarises the masses.
Oh, he does something to the masses which has got nothing to do with polarising.
I think there's some mass debating going on.
Robbo, you're a terrible journalist. You really are. You're appalling.
We know you're watching.
Yeah, you would be watching. You're a terrible journalist. And it's probably all a joke to you, and you're probably laughing and all that sort of stuff, but you really aren't very good. And most people out there know it. And they don't like your standard of journalism. You might not care, but maybe one day you'll look back on your career and think, geez, I shouldn't have been so much of a prick. But do what you want to do, because that's what you've been doing the whole time you've been writing.
Prick, of course, being Latin for divisive person.
Prick. And there was one other thing where Eddie complained about the fixturing. I'm not going to bother going into it until we win. It becomes an issue. If we don't win, who cares? I actually think Eddie's right in what he said, but again, we've got to get past this week, so let's worry about that next week, should we need to worry about it.
Correctamundo.
So that's it for Media Mephitic.
Oh, there's a brief one.
Yes.
Surely there was some other shit dribbled in the media this week.
No, I couldn't care.
What about your favourite website? Didn't they have anything to say?
I didn't look.
Oh,
no, I did look.
I can't believe I put up the graphic for all that.
Yeah. Well,
I'm taking it down!
Maybe you just call it the Robbo Mephitic.
Oh. Well, there's a little bit of Mephitic about Robbo.
Mephitic Mark.
Maybe time for a segment change.
Could be. We should
Media Mephitic.
What we should do is we should have an award, like the Razzies, which we'll give out to the worst journalist, and we'll just name it the Robbo.
Maybe that could be a special for the end of the year.
Yeah.
Once we do the song and dance one.
Okay. Well, we'll definitely get on to that. Anyway, we'll be coming back with... is there a match next week?
Yes.
So we'll be coming up previewing next week's match.
Oh, goody.
So welcome back to the match preview. So we are playing GWS at MCG 7:25 Saturday night.
What does GWS stand for? I mean, I can't even spell it.
I have no idea what it stands for. Poker music, apparently. Josh Kelly has a small tear in the meniscus. They're still saying he could play.
Yeah, of course he'll play.
Of course he'll play. Toby Green auditioned for a Bruce Lee movie on Saturday afternoon with several high kicks.
Everybody was kung fu fighting.
Yep, and he dropped a knee on someone. It was seriously like watching the WWE.
Yeah, but there's no rule to say that that's illegal. So everyone go out and do it this week.
Well, when Tyler Adams dropped a knee on Justin Westhoff, he got like 2 weeks, and everyone was calling for him to be banned forever.
Well, nobody expects the Spanish Inquisition.
So Toby Green, shockingly, was cleared of 19 offences of kicking.
That's an endorsement, I think.
Yep, and we should have Ben Reid and Darcy Moore available.
Hang on a second, we're doing the 2018 season.
Yes, the 2018 season.
Ah.
So
Are
those,
they available to cut oranges?
they're available to do their hammies
Back
mid-game.
rubs. Oh,
Alright, so you have these two guys.
Well, there's 3 certainties in life.
Yes.
And that's 2 of them.
You have these two guys back, and the only...
Back-related hamstrings?
That also. The only other guy you'd probably consider in the frame for selection would be...
Jesus Christ.
No, he's done a hammy. Alex Fasolo would be the
Ooh.
only one I'd think. Callum Brown was good in the final we lost a couple of weeks ago, but the midfield is not where we're struggling. Dacos did a few nice things. But again, I'm looking at it from the point of view, if they're going to pick anyone, it's going to be the experienced players. This is not the time to be throwing Callum Brown a game, Josh Dacos, unless there's,
I think we're going unchanged.
The only possibility these guys could get a game is if Scott Pendlebury has infected everybody with Ebola virus, and we have like 8 changes over the week, and that's a really good possibility, I think.
So there's every chance that the delayed Virgin flights also probably channeled all the oxygen in the plane through one face mask.
Yeah,
and you know whose that'll be.
So you were going out unchanged?
I think unchanged.
Yeah. What would you do? Is that what you think they'll do? Is that what?
That's what I think they'll do. And really, when it comes to changes, like I said before, the cupboard's pretty bare. I don't know who you could really bring in. There's nobody coming back.
Or Moore should be back.
There's nobody coming back.
So Moore's generally broken down the second game he's played the whole year.
The second of the second game, or
yeah, in the second. But the first game he's got him through. So
he's like a ninja though. No one sees him come off.
No. So he, to me, if he's fit, I would play him. He adds X factor. He allows you to swing him forward and back.
Who would you drop though?
Chris Main.
But who's going to provide the comedy?
I know this is going to be a strain on Moore's body because he's had the soft tissue injuries. I would seriously play Darcy Moore on the wing.
You know what would have happened though if we played more over Darcy, over Main, is that ball, instead of falconing him on the head, would have hit him in the hamstring and tore his leg off the bone, and that's it. There'd be that's all, folks.
If you look at Melbourne, once Jake Lever went down...
Why would I look at Melbourne?
Yeah, that's a good point. But once Jake Lever went down, Max Gorn started dropping back a lot more and playing sort of the interceptor. I would play Darcy on the wing and go drop back, provide the intercept.
Do the hamstring.
And provide a bit
Take
of
yourself
counter-attack.
off.
But look, I'm looking for guys who are going to take the game on and win it for us.
Really?
You know, why... You know, it's... Seriously, you need players who, when it's their time to win the match for us, they'll win it for us. If Chris Mayne took a mark and had to kick after the siren to win the game, I'm sure he'd still look for the handoff. It's just, you know... And the sad thing... What I find...
Or he'd kick it into his own head.
What I find tragic about that is I actually think he has the capacity to take the game on. It's just he's become so...
Comedic?
Tentative about his position in the side that he's worried he's going to get dropped if he makes errors. I think he's trying to always play this linkage role, which a lot of the time is superfluous because he's doing those little handoffs to nobody, which he could have done himself. He is an experienced player. Physically, he's built. He could easily, you know, try and break a tackle or two. I mean, he's not going to be the quickest player, but he's not...
Certainly not quick by mind.
No, yeah. So I would, you know, if he's not going to do that, then I would play more. The good thing I like about Moore, the few times he's played this year,
this should be a quick assessment.
Yeah, is he will try and take the game. No, like when he was playing on Buddy, there's a few times he sort of ranged ahead. He just tried to cut him off and all that sort of stuff. And sometimes he probably plays a little bit too much license, but at least he's trying to make things happen. And you need that with players, regardless of what position they're playing. And look, I don't know about Darcy. Will he stay? Will he go? I don't know. You'd like to think that Darcy's going to stay, but he wants to be part of this growing list.
All jokes aside, I hope he does stay.
You know, I hope he stays too. I mean, I would love if he announced he re-signed...
Today?
Yes, pretty much today, tomorrow. Just really buoy the team. And for him to sort of come out and say, I'm looking forward to being part of this group. We're going places.
I'm doing my part.
Yes. And then I'll lose on Saturday. But, you know, I'd love to see that. Because I imagine
he could sign the contract for the camera and then do the hamstring as he's walking off. Can you do a hamstring in your finger?
Oh, he probably could do a hamstring-related finger injury. Oh. No, but here's the one change I'd make. I don't think... There's no position there for Solo at the moment.
No.
You don't really need a mid at the moment. The mids are very well stocked. Moore gives them flexibility all over the ground to, you know, again, go forward, go back.
Go for a ride on a card.
Play midfield. You know, but just... I would like to see that with Collingwood, given that I have Mycheck, Howe, and Moore. I would like to see, you know, just sometimes get, you know what, Mayo's not having a great game at the moment. Let's throw him back or throw Howe forward and just try and, you know, toss it up a little bit. And again, like with Moore, I'd play him on the wing and just go, you know, just drop back. You got to be an interceptor and then run forward and be the loose man and all that sort of stuff. He'd be a really hard guy to match up on. It might not work, but I just think, you know, they need to think a little bit more laterally than what they've been doing.
It's an all or nothing game, this, so...
But the other thing with Moore is, would you really play him in defence? I think the defence is relatively well stocked now.
So what tools have GWS got apart from Cameron? Who do you have to stop?
Cameron.
That's it, really, isn't it? And
Lob, Slob.
And the Kung Fu Meister.
But he's not at all, is he? He's just...
No, but he's dangerous there. We're talking about who we're going to stop kicking goals.
Yeah, well, is he kicking goals or just kicking players?
Well, he kicks the odd good one. Like, he kicked that nice little snap on the weekend. He had a big roost from outside 50.
We're still talking about goals, not players. Not up opponents.
No, but we're talking about curtailing scoring.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But, you know, I'd even look at trying to stretch them a little bit. So, yeah, I mean, that's what I'd do. But I won't do it. I think they will go unchanged. Unless there's some sort of injuries. Mycheck had scans, he was cleared.
He was interviewed tonight saying the moon boot's just for laughs.
Yeah, like Collingwood.
He was concerned that Chris Mayne may fall onto his foot later on today, so he had to have protection.
Well, at Collingwood, they don't wear moccasins for comfort, they wear moon boots. So unless someone like Mycheck goes out or Greenwood gets rubbed out for 6 weeks for an accidental head clash, which is always a possibility.
A self-inflicted head wound.
Yeah. Unless there's some unforeseen out that we have, I think they will go in unchanged. I would make that change, but I think they'll go in unchanged. Mm-hmm. I think even if Reed's fit, he's just it's too problematic to actually go with him as a selection. I know you could say the same thing about Moore, but geez, Moore's got some youth on his side, and you'd hope at some point they do get this right. But I think they'll go unchanged. So what's your actual prediction for the game?
I'd like to think we win. I mean, GWS, they, in all essence, look good against Sydney, but I think the way Sydney were playing, you and I could look good against Sydney.
I'd look good against anyone.
I think we should account for them. I'm confident that we'll make the prelim, and see what happens there.
Lose by 5. But yeah, all right. I actually think we'll win pretty comfortably. GWS has looked good, but geez, they've got a lot of injuries also, and their injuries have actually really hurt their productivity. If they lose Josh Kelly, that's a massive out.
Well, let's hope he's okay.
Yeah. Well, all the best for him. But I mean, the one thing I'm just going to be a prick.
Robbo.
Well, there's nothing unusual about that. When other clubs have cried injury, I just think, you really? I don't care. Have you seen what's happening at Collingwood? There's guys going down with season-ending injuries like every other week, and the guys who aren't going down with season-ending injuries, they're just going...
There's still 4 days before the game.
But, the other guys are just going out every second week with the same recurring injury. So I don't really care about other clubs' injuries. We've had them the whole year. We haven't been given them...
what about Richmond, though? All the injuries they've had. They deserve a bit of sympathy.
Yeah.
I heard someone had a nasty nail-clipping incident this week.
Well, I heard going into the finals, they were whinging about the injuries. It's like, really, fucking get serious. So what's your tip for the game?
Pies by 13 points.
Pies by 54.
Oh, well, we're close.
We're close. We both picked the Pies. So that's it from us. Hopefully we're back next week with some good news. And if we're not...
Welcome to the final show for the year.
Yeah. Until next week.
Goodbye. Thank you for watching. Go Woods.
Later.
Chris Bone.